So last week I saw the movie White Noise on Netflix, and this movie was perplexing, to say the least. I love this movie, but this film is so full of symbolism that it can be very difficult to interpret. So I want to break down everything. Like the man in Jack's nightmares, Babette's addiction to Dylar, the weird university courses, the men in the motel at the end, the atheist nuns, and that dance in the supermarket at the very end. I listened to countless interviews with the director, writers, and actors, and did a lot of research on how it relates to the original novel. And if you've read the original novel, I would love to read and discuss your insights in the comments, so please let me know, and I hope you enjoy. So to break this movie down, we're going to use 3 themes. 1, fear of death. We'll discuss the main point of the movie, the mysterious man in Jack's nightmares, the class learning about car crashes, and Jack's expertise in Hitler studies. 2, comfort and misinformation. We'll discuss the unique style of the dialogue, the Elvis Hitler lecture, the children characters, and the airborne toxic event. And 3, embracing death. We'll discuss Jack's exposure to the toxin, Babette's Dylar affair, and the ending with Jack meeting Mr. Grey, the atheist nuns, and the supermarket dance, and much more. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and a comment. It helps so much. And if you want to see more of these, please make sure to subscribe as well. Let's get started. Theme number 1, fear of death. Since this movie is so abstract and symbolic in its nature, I think it's best to begin this analysis with the overall central thematic point of the film. The central theme is this: our obsessive fear of death and the strange ways we try to conquer it. Early on in the film, we hear Jack say, "All plots move deathward," meaning everything that exists is inevitably moving toward its death. And this concept is relentlessly haunting our 2 main characters. Jack and Babette are obsessively fearful of death. Babette, on one hand, is taking a mysterious drug to help her deal with this fear. The drug is called Dylar, but we'll talk about Dylar a little later in this video. Jack, on the other hand, is being haunted by this mysterious man that he sees throughout the day and in his room at night, never really making out his face. This man is a symbol of Jack's fear of death, and death itself, as this man follows Jack everywhere he goes. Jack even confirms this when we hear him briefly say, "The man in my dreams is death." Jack and Babette's uncontrollable paranoia and every other character's quirky behavior is a hyperbolic, exaggerated example of all of us. The fear of death lurks within all of us, and we resort to unique behaviors and practices to deal with, distract from, and contain the idea of death. And one of these strategies is to view death from afar, to separate it from ourselves, as if we are immune to it. An example of this would be when the family crowds around the television to watch a plane crash on the news. The crash itself is being shown as a form of entertainment, banking on our shock and fascination associated with tragedy, and subconsciously making it feel slightly unreal to us. Another example would be the very first scene in the film, when Murray teaches a course on the glory of tragic car crashes, when it's part of our entertainment cycle. This oversimplification of tragedy is also symbolized by Jack's profession. He's a professor in Hitler studies, a field of study that is so focused on only the most recognized dictator in history, when it could focus on something more broad that would be more effective in education, like race relations, sociopolitics, or German history. Hitler studies just has the most ear-catching name and plays on our fascination and shock with death and tragedy. Theme number 2, comfort and misinformation. Early on in the film, at the supermarket, Murray says to Jack, "Family is the cradle of the world's misinformation." And what this line means is that we can create our own truths within whatever family, or better yet, community we are a part of. Religious groups each have their own answers and guidelines. Family households each have their own values and myths. Political groups each have their own perspective on what is right and wrong. When we are part of a family or a group, we create our own version of fact to improve our feeling of morality and safety. And this ties in perfectly with Jack and Murray's following lines. There must be something in general family life that generates factual error. Facts threaten our happiness and security. Creating misinformation and withholding information within our own communities makes life more comfortable and enjoyable. Do The older characters in the story have learned this, while the younger characters haven't caught on yet. And the dialogue in this movie is delivered in such a unique and quirky way, like everyone is expressing the thoughts that are going on in their head. It's done this way to expose humanity's collective obsessions, avoidance of the truth, and need for distraction. The children's conversations are a lot more intelligent than the adults. The children are constantly addressing the reality right in front of them. The parents are constantly talking around the reality right in front of them. And this theme of misinformation creating security within groups also ties in with Jack's epic lecture about how Hitler fans and Elvis fans love to be part of a crowd, as it keeps the idea of death away from them. And loneliness would only invite the idea of death closer. Meanwhile, during this lecture, a drunk driver of a truck with flammable chemicals collides with a train full of toxic chemicals, which begins the airborne toxic event. This event allows the film to explore what we would do when death gets very close to us, rather than far away on a television or in formal education. The parents, being who they are, continuously convince themselves nothing is wrong, while the children are well aware and concerned about the danger. Since this is a real citywide emergency with a brand new scientific cause, there is no general information or misinformation for the people to depend on. People need a leader to follow or a group to be a part of. So we see the citizens quickly resort to leaders based on gut feeling, when there is no sense of order, comfort, or security in the moment. Everyone listens to Heinrich as he breaks down the science of the toxin. Jack follows the gun control is mind control car as he trusts their unique off-road escape. Everyone listens and cheers behind the rebellious ranting man holding the television. And during this event, sadly, when Jack is pumping gas, he becomes exposed to the cloud, which brings me to theme number 3. Embracing death. Once the toxin is cleared from the city, we learn more about the fear of death that haunts Jack and Babette. Jack's fear of death is made worse by his contact with the airborne toxin. Since his contact exceeds 2 minutes, he's expected to die early, yet the date is unspecified. Babette finally admits to joining a clinical trial for the drug Dilar. The Dilar pill is meant to treat people with severe death anxiety, and Babette eagerly volunteered to test this drug. Unfortunately, a man she calls Mr. Gray was manipulating her, only offering her more of the drug if she had sex with him. Babette, desperate to get over her chronic anxiety, agreed to this deal. When Jack finds out, he can't escape the rage he feels for what Mr. Gray has done, so he heads to the address in the ad for Dilar, armed with the gun from Mr. Murray. Jack finds Mr. Gray in a motel, realizing that he is the mysterious man that he had visions of in his daily life and in his dreams, the one who Jack described as death. Mr. Gray looks miserable, swallowing pill after pill, after finding out that the drug isn't a treatment for death anxiety. It doesn't work. Mr. Gray only suffers from its real side effects, like memory loss and hallucinations. Mr. Gray represents death, the fear of death, and the misery that death anxiety can bring to us. He is a real person, but also a symbolic figure for Jack and Babette's paranoia. This is why Jack saw Mr. Gray in his visions and dreams. The idea, fear, and misery of death is always haunting and following Jack. And this is where the movie gets really symbolic. Jack shoots Mr. Gray, believing that forcing death upon someone else will grant him new life, and maybe allow him to escape the fear of death, which Murray suggested when he handed Jack the gun. Maybe violence is a form of rebirth. Maybe you can kill death. So if Jack shoots Mr. Gray, he is literally and symbolically killing the fear of death. However, Jack is overcome with his own humanity after he shoots Mr. Gray, even after Mr. Gray shoots him and his wife. And the meaning of this scene is that death isn't supposed to be conquered. It can't be. It needs to be embraced. Jack and Babette rush themselves and Mr. Gray to a hospital nearby, run by German atheist nuns. The nuns clarify that they are atheists and only pretend to have faith. The film is basically saying that the concept of heaven and religion creates community, which generates our collective truths, which gives us peace and morality, and in the end, keeps us away from death and allows us to enjoy life. And in this moment, Jack and Babette are able to reconcile and find peace in existing together in the moment. And this brings us to the supermarket dance finale. The supermarket in the movie is a symbol of how we experience life in a just, orderly, comfortable society, full of pleasant distractions, full of beautiful white noise. It's a system we're all familiar with, where we all feel safe and we all can coexist in a comfortable way. And it's also the source of our survival. So this final dance is a celebration of the order, security, and distraction we happily live within every day, semi-falsely feeling protected from loss, disaster, and most of all, non-existence. Alright, that's my analysis. Subscribe for weekly videos and please send me your recommendations. And please let me know your thoughts and ideas around white noise because there's so much here to talk about. I hope to see you again and thank you so much for watching. See you later.